Welcome back. Bradenton's new noise ordinance has been in place for a week. Let's start by looking at the restrictions. Non-residential districts can have noise up to 75 decibels from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. on Sundays through Thursdays. The limit extends until midnight on Fridays and Saturdays and on holidays. Once the time limit is reached, noise must drop down to 65 decibels. Residential areas can have 75 decibels of noise from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. While the new rules affect the entire city, the debate has focused mainly around the Village of the Arts and the Motorworks Brewing. Did everybody get those numbers straight? Joining us for more on the new noise ordinance is Bradenton Councilman Bemis Smith, the only council member to vote against the new ordinance. It was a 4-to-1 vote. And also the founder of Motorworks Brewing, Frank Tachita, and the executive director of the Village of the Arts, Ann Rossini. Thank you all for being here tonight. I know you disagree on the ordinance, but you're civil to each other, and we'll have a friendly debate here. And it's a hard issue. I can imagine, because everyone who's watching this could imagine being home on any given night and wanting to go to sleep and being kept up by the noise outside. But as you discussed in Kate's story, is this is an overlay area where it's both commercial and residential, and therefore that's where the conflict comes in. Isn't that correct?
Well, yes, but it's not as commercial as you would expect commercial to be. This was a blighted district that the city of Bradenton wanted cleaned up, and they asked artists to come in and do so. And it was called an economic overlay district, with very low intensity use as a possibility. At the time, it was just houses that were in decline. And
right, but Bradenton made a conscious decision, correct me if I'm wrong, to try to build up the area and the businesses and the nightlife. And so there we went through several months of debate about a city, the noise ordinance. And, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, you thought the ordinance was going to go in a different direction.
Well, when the first meeting, and we've been at this for a year and a half. This has been a year and a half I've spent my life dealing with this. We went through the county, the Chamber of Commerce, the young professionals. Everybody has come to some type of an agreement. Then the city was the next one in the list because the city wanted to follow the county. Well, through the course of workshops and so on and so forth, the city adopted an 80 decibel level and left the 75 all day long alone, because that was in the old ordinance.
We want to get into the nitty-gritty of this, but first let's explain what Motorworks is. Okay.
We are a brewery that is distributed probably right now in about 85% of the state. As you know, I just came back from Fort Pierce today. We are actually now, according to the Florida Brewers Guild, we've been given the honor of being the #1 large brewery inside Florida. Not due to the fact of the amount of barrelage we turn, but the quality of beer that we bring out.
So it's not just a restaurant where you could eat and hear live music. You are, literally pumping out a lot of beer.
We are manufacturing.
All right, and Councilman, so obviously you have a commercial business going on here, but the district and the arts, that's something that has been there for many years. So I would imagine that the council has had to really balance the needs of residents and the needs of business owners like Frank.
And that's exactly the issue that boiled down here on our discussion. For years, the city of Bradenton has been working to promote a vibrant lifestyle. 20 years ago, it was pretty quiet and all downtown. There wasn't much going on, and nobody really came to Bradenton. We've been trying to make Bradenton, and I say we being the council and the chamber and others, a vibrant community that draws young people back when they get out of school and also brings people in. So we've done our form-based code, which is more oriented toward urban designs that have buildings coming close to the road. We've tried to promote businesses downtown. We've tried to increase the height of buildings in our urban core to create a more urban environment. And along with that is having a vibrant music and nightlife, and that's what we've been pushing for with this ordinance.
All right, it's a good time to take a break here, and what I want to get to when we come back is the fact that it could either the Village of the Arts or local businesses could be impacted if some kind of agreement is not good for all parties. But we'll get to that in a moment. Our discussion continues after a check on our weather, so stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing Bradenton's new noise ordinance. Last week, the City Council agreed on changes allowing it to be louder later, but some say it is still too restrictive. Our guests tonight are Bradenton Councilman Bema Smith, Frank Cheetah, founder of Motorworks Brewing, and Annie Rossini, who is the Executive Director for the Village of the Arts. And I know this is a really contentious issue, but Frank, I'm going to start with you. If you could explain to our viewers what you're doing during the day, how that changes at night, and how close are you, even during the day, or bumping up into the new limit in terms of decibels?
Well, when in the process of making beer, obviously we're taking grain, we're grinding it, we're running pumps, we're running boilers, we're running augers, we're running forklifts, a lot of things are going on. Compressors are running. On our canning line, air valves are being shut on and off and exhausting air.
It's loud.
It's loud. So I'm sorry, but I just went through a $500,000 contract to do an expansion in my brewery. In 20 weeks, we will go live 24/7.
Annie, let me ask you, how loud is it at your place of business and at your home?
Well, I happen to be on the industrial side of his business, not on the soundstage side. So I hear what he's talking about, and it is loud, but it's a commercial business. It's in a commercial district. And so I don't have any arguments with that. Mostly the commercial portion of the business, the loud trucks, et cetera, that ends around 5. Now, I didn't know it was going to be a 24 an hour.
24/7. That's the original
So that
contract
will
we
change
signed
things
with
a
the
lot,
city.
and I wasn't aware of that. However, speaking to the, with respect to the music, which I think is what has
So
brought
now
us
we're
all
talking
here.
about at night.
Well, we're talking about any time.
Sound is sound.
For 17 hours a day, Friday, Saturday, and holidays, now the sound ordinance will be at 75. There was no 80 prior to that. Also, Frank has asked for extended hours. He has received that to midnight, which I think is reasonable. And I don't think most of the villagers, and that would be 220 residents, most of them who are residents, very small percentage are artists. The artists tend to be toward the city because we have chosen to work the overlay district and create cottage industry, 4 cafes and 2 bakeries. We're open 1 day a month at night and 1 day a month during the day, but predominantly a couple days a week, part-time.
So tell our viewers, at what point on what days does the sound interfere with your home life?
Well, I would speak mostly to the folks on 10th Avenue where the sound stage is, and I would say every single day and night.
And how distracting is it? I mean,
well, I went to the art walk. I walked through the art walk, last art walk, and I took friends. And I was at the gallery that was closest to the sound stage. And I was as far from the owner speaking to her, and many times had to ask her to repeat what she was saying. This was inside a gallery with a full room, a bedroom, between her art gallery space and the sound stage across the street, and we were incapable of conversation.
It should be noted that the beer garden outside of the brewery has become the issue with the neighbors. It's not the activities going on, at least at this point in time, inside of the building.
Correct.
It's that Frank has a large beer garden with cornhole and putting green, and that's where the noise has been coming from with the band that's affected.
On this same art walk, it's also kind of important to notice there's also a band playing 1 door down directly across the street from that art gallery.
Right, but when you hear Annie describe, I don't know if distress is the right word, but that some people, some homeowners feel to the hours and the loudness of the music and so forth, what goes through your mind?
Well, I kind of go back to the fact that when those particular people bought this house for $40,000 on the auction block, stripped it completely inside, did they help themselves? Did they put insulation in the walls? Did they put a better window to the east side of the building when they knew exactly what was going to happen inside that beer garden? There's a little bit of okay, I bought this house in repossession at the airport, but them flying airplanes out of the airport, I'm not happy about it.
Right. Annie, I want to give you a chance to respond to that, and then Bemis, I have an important question for you. I mean, when many of people bought these homes, did they realize that this is a commercial area that could have live entertainment, and you should know what you get?
This area was a dead area, completely. We are the first area to be revitalized, and we started 18 years ago. Our buildings, our houses with jalousie windows, and I had to put insulation in and did. And of course, I can still hear the noise.
All right, Councilman, obviously this ordinance is meant for Bradenton in general, but we're mostly talking about this area right here. And I know, since you're the only one who voted against the ordinance, what you did have in mind, what you did aspire to do is come up with some mitigation that would make this more manageable for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and part of the proposal that when I brought the noise ordinance forward was a mitigation component within the ordinance, or along with the ordinance, that would allow the city through grants to, or something along that line. We have other grants to assist situations just like this in trying to mitigate the problems between neighbors that are close.
Frank, I know you've been working on mitigation and you've been coming up with some problems.
Well, after I was shell-shocked last Wednesday night by being the worst person on the planet, according to everybody in the village, or at least the 5 people that were on the city thing there, I started in on the telephone. And because I've been on the road for the past 7, 8 days. So I had a lot of road time to talk to engineers and mitigation people and so on and so forth. There are a myriad of possibilities out there. I am not a sound engineer. I've got an engineering background. I can tell you about pumps. I can tell you about force. I can tell you about wind. But I know nothing of sound. When they tell me to go turn the stereo down, I pull the plug on it inside the brewery. I'm not that guy.
Here, I would imagine is what most people are concerned about, that if the ordinance is passed, it is in effect, but if the people who live in the community are going to be distressed by this, they're going to move out.
Exactly.
And if you can't manage your business the way that you need to manage, you're going to move out probably.
Correct.
There are solutions that are available. Frank has spoken many times to building a wall, which has not happened yet. And also, there are going to be other places around the Village of the Arts. We are completely surrounded at this point by commercial and new zoning that Bemis Smith just spoke to, which is the form-based zoning, has created more commercial residential, but more on the commercial side around the perimeter inside the Village of the Arts, which is a new zoning that we didn't have over all these years. And now that creates a very different situation in which the easements have been changed as far as you can bring your business all the way out over the sidewalk in these areas. And I don't know what all the zoning...
But is this any different than, let's say, the way that downtown St. Pete has grown over the last decade or two, which is now a thriving downtown area with a lot of restaurants and music, but also a lot of residential space?
I think we in the Village of the Arts are comfortable with the sound ordinance as it is. We went up to 75. We raised the hours to midnight. I don't really know what the problem is at this point.
We have less than a minute left, but Frank, I want to give you a chance.
The sound ordinance, the original sound ordinance always was 75 all day long, day and night. It was 75. It just wasn't amplified. Amplified, the word amplified was taken out. And then the next draft of the sound ordinance that was supposed to be put in place was 80-80, and the 75 stayed.
All right.
It was never 64. That's residential zoning.
All right, let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll have final thoughts from our guests. Welcome back. There are new rules for noise levels in Bradenton. Are they still too restrictive? Should the City Council get quieter instead? Our guests join us right now for final thoughts. And Councilman, I would imagine you still have a pickle going on here because it doesn't seem like either side is completely happy.
That's absolutely the case. My concern is that we shut down businesses. The reality is all along it's not been about these two, this restaurant or brewery in this neighborhood. It's been a citywide ordinance. My goal is to try to continue to promote that. And the reality is any rules that we make oftentimes hurt some individuals, and we're forced to try to balance the public good against that.
Frank, I could see you're not happy.
Oh, absolutely not. Because, I haven't had a 10 o'clock curfew since I was 17 years old and living on my dad's farm. I mean, come on, at 10 o'clock, we're no longer allowed to talk. We're no longer allowed to laugh. And at 10 o'clock, I might as well turn the keys on my business and tell my customers, okay, all you guys shut up and get the hell out of here.
Annie, is that an overstatement or?
Absolutely. In the Village of
64
the Arts, we are very happy with the decision that was made. It was definitely a compromise. We wanted 70, or some people wanted 65. Frank has always wanted 80 and much more extended hours, I think even throughout the business week. We're happy with that, but we want to be able to continue to preserve our neighborhood. We've worked for many, many years. We have a beautiful, beautiful cottage industry and beautiful cottages. We want to live there. We are neighbors.
Frank, where do you go from here? I mean, can you make it under these restrictions, or are you considering legal action?
Well,
or what?
you got to, if the county or the city would go back to their original draft of 75 all day long and 80 underneath the hours that they've already given me, then I'm sure we could come up with a plan to make it work. But to just go to work and say at 10 o'clock, you're going to go back to 64 decibels, where right now I'm talking 64 decibels. My guys are going to be way louder than that when we go into full manufacturing.
We have just a couple of seconds left. Annie, is there room to negotiate here, or is what's done is done?
Well, I think that 64 decibels, this language that we're speaking right now, next to your bedroom would be too much to sleep to. And that's what we're talking about in reality.
All right, we have to leave it right there. Thanks to our guests for being here tonight. Bema Smith is City Councilman for Bradenton. Frank Chida is the founder of Motorworks Brewing, and Annie Rossini is the Executive Director of the Village of the Arts.